So, can we start? So, the unfortunate thing is that we won't be able to complete the Katha Upanishad in this semester. We have to do it again at some point, some more parts, because it's rather long, but the sum of it, of course, we can sum it up in a way. So, yesterday, last week we stopped at, see, it's like this. Nachiketas, third question was, what happens after death? Is one alive after death or dead with the body? And if that is so, is there some way by which one can still be without death? So, one can still live without death. And Yama, we went through all that, said that look, the body may die, but you will not. But you will be reborn again and again, and therefore death keeps coming, and you will think you are going to die. I am roughly telling you. Therefore, when you realize that you are actually the inner self, immortal, that self is immortal, and it's a part of the universal self, there is no difference. And its quality itself is fearlessness, abhaya, and bliss and tranquility, which will not be disturbed by any external circumstance. But then Yama tested him well before talking about this to make sure that he is serious and not just, like asking like the argumentative Indian, just like that. You know that book, who wrote it? Somebody got a Nobel Prize also for it. Who wrote it? Anyway, so which is okay. While I would prefer a dialogue than an argument, but anyway. So then he says, then he said about what is good and what is pleasant, and how to distinguish between the good and the pleasant. And the pleasant may not always be good, but the good may not be on the surface pleasant, but in the end will be happiness. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Gospel. So then he goes on to say that then that's theory. So how do you connect with that? Having understood that is what you have to do, how do you? So Yama says Om, the mystic word Om. So I repeat once more that and then go to the next where we stopped. Sarve Vedayat Padam Amananti Tapamsi Sarvani cha yad vadanti yad icchanto brahmacharyam charanti tatte padam samgramhena bravimi om iti etat. We explained everything, so I'll just give a translation. We went deep into this. You also asked some questions and so on. That word which all the Vedas declare, which all the austerities, tapasyas proclaim, desiring which people live the life of a religious student, a brahmachari. That word I shall now tell you in brief, that is Om. Now you notice samgramehena bravimi, that means in brief. So does that bravimi sound like brief to you? Which is the older language? Sanskrit. So brief bravimi. Om iti etat, that is Om which I am telling you about. Now we also discuss that Om and its syllables A, U and Ma, and now A is the beginning, U is the continuation, and Ma is the end, so that something new can come about, which we also discussed this very thoroughly. Oh, apart from that, since you are all science students, I also was discussing with you if it's possible to experiment with the sound of Om and see if it brings about some change, visible change, because otherwise you scientists will not believe that it is true. So if we can bring about some change, even externally, internally of course it brings about change, no question, we know it, I know it. Outward also I know it, but you have to prove it in your own way. So there are many ways of doing it. I will give you a simple experiment. Take a vessel or a drum or something, cover it with a thin paper, put rubber bands and set it up. Put some sand grains on it, just like you do with magnetism. You put iron, sprinkle iron dust and then put the magnet underneath to show how. So in the same way, sprinkle some sand. Then have some way by which you can chant Om and the vibration of your chanting reaches the paper underneath, and see if something is going on. I mean different ways, and go near a plant which is growing and chant Om and see if it works. Make sure neighbor doesn't see you, they might think you're off, going and shouting Om at the trees. So go near plants, go try it. And when you eat, before you eat, sit and chant Om few times, if nothing else, and see if it makes a difference. Or keep chanting Om regularly and see if it makes a difference to your internal structure and your mind. Because finally we are looking at the mind. Physical, yes, but beyond that the mind, and beyond that what is beyond the mind, right? So, and then Yama says to our friend Nachiketas, I think by now we must be thinking of him as a friend, good fellow. He says, hearing this Om and comprehending it and understanding it, a mortal, which means one who, not immortal, one who is born and who will die, a mortal, extracting the essence of the Om, reaches the subtle, rejoices, and attains the source of all joy. Now, Nachiketas, that abode is wide open unto you. So, hearing Om, comprehending it, bringing it into your life in some way, you reach the subtle essence of the sound, then you rejoice, and having attained the source of joy, then you attain the source of all joy, which is your inner self, not here given, but we know since we have been doing the Katha Upanishad. Such an abode is wide open to you, Nachiketas. Now, Nachiketas, is quite a studious, serious seeker, so he is not completely happy or satisfied with the answer. He wants to know more. So he says, Anyatra dharmat, anyatra dharmat, anyatrasmat kritat, anyatra bhutat, cha bhavyat, cha yat tat pashyasi tadvada. Nachiketas, tell me that which you see, which is beyond right and wrong, beyond what is done or not done, beyond the past and beyond the future. Now, this is a question whoever Rishi put out this Upanishad, it used to show that what you are seeking first is beyond that which is the past and which is the future. We discussed the past and the future before somewhere. The fact is, what we call past does not exist now, except in our minds. You might say, no, but the result of what we have today is the result of the past. Agreed. What is today is the result of the past in some way. However, the past as such does not exist now. All that exists now is you and me sitting in front of each other. In 1 minute or half a minute, you don't know the time, it's become the past and there's a new thing going on. But this present merging into the past is so fast that we think it's linked, that is one chain. Actually, it's linked like those little things that you have in the chain. 1, 2, 3 links. Actually, it's very fast, so you cannot see it. The best example to understand this would be, now we don't have, it's all digital, but before that we had the projector and the camera with film, movie camera. Now, if you look at some of the old negatives, some of the old pictures of a movie camera, you'll see that the simple process of raising my hand up like this has many frames. In one it is up to here, then it is up to here, then it is up to here, then. But when you see it at a certain speed, you see only one act. In the same way, life as presented to the mind by the senses consists of frames, and each frame passes from the present to the past. But like at a certain speed of perception that we have, it appears to be all linked together continuously. Now future we don't know really, because when the future happens, it has become the present, it's no more the future. Till then, the future is only a projection, saying if this and this has happened, this must happen or may happen. This is future for us, anything. Even physically, if in certain seasons there is going to be rain or sunshine, then we say, oh, next month we know the future is going to. But now in here, in Madnapalli I am sitting, it's been reversed because there is a cyclone in Chennai. This time we should be having nice winter with sun, we are having rain. We can't detect, we can't predict. So projection. Projection based on our past experiences processed through the present. So, Nachiketas is asking him, is there something which does not get caught up in this past, future and so on, which is always there eternally, which doesn't go, or which we are not sure of in the future, which is as real as I am sitting here now? And he also says, tell me that which you see beyond right and wrong. Now, now you see, this right and wrong is such a very relative term, that what is right in one society may be wrong in another society. In one society, it's okay to marry 4 or 3. In one society, it's frowned upon. It's wrong. Now, the reason has to be the particular situation, particular environment, the particular background of their religious and social teachings. So, there is actually no something which we can actually define as right and wrong. Yes, there is. If you are on the spiritual path and if you want to find the truth, then it is wrong in the sense that it is not conducive to finding the truth if you lead an untruthful life. Now that's a practical right and wrong. It's not an absolute right and wrong. You know what I am trying to say? And if you are trying to move outside the ken of your senses or the limitations of your senses, then I would say, well, it's a mistake not to get too much caught up by the senses. Turn within. This is the base which with all morality laws have come into being. Now, even there is a difference, because suppose I refrain, for an example, from having any relationships of the senses with somebody for my own good, that is to find my own self. I want to be away from it. And if that person dies, commits suicide, I have done a wrong, even though I am doing the right. Now, this right and wrong and this past and future are therefore relative to us who are mortals. But when you discover your true essence, which is the Atman, which is timeless, which has no past or present, and which has nothing to attain because it is already full, Purna, then there is no future, there is no past, there is no right, there is no wrong. That's what it means. Doesn't mean to give a license to do what you want, there is no right on that. That's not what it means. You must understand this, because it's coming in the context of this teaching, not out of context. Yesterday I gave a Doordarshan interview in Delhi. Sorry, I didn't see you because I was busy with that awards function. So evening they came and they wanted to have an interview. And they said, do you see any relationship between the Gita and the Quran? First few minutes I was in a fix, I didn't know what to say. Then I said, okay, it's like this. Where was the Gita preached? In the battlefield of Kurukshetra. But was Krishna advocating himsa? No. Because one of the great virtues he talks about is ahimsa in the Gita. But he says to Arjuna, fight because you are protecting dharma. Don't get scared. Don't go back. So there is a context for that. You know, during the war, it's you are protecting something that what you do is not, although in the eternal sense it is himsa, you cannot categorize it that way. So I said, when the Quran was created at that point, or whatever, it was a constant war situation. Those who did not believe in this were fighting with others and killing them. So they said, when they are before you, kill them. So we have to see everything in its context. So the interpretation is very important. It depends on the time, the situation and everything. But ultimately goodness of human mind is most important. Therefore, anything that interferes with the tranquility of your inner being, you can say is wrong, relatively. Somebody else who is not looking into finding the truth, they need not think it is wrong. Maybe they think it's right, but we think so. So this is how rules are made, rules and regulations. But sometimes some great people come and break the rules because they know time has come now, we need to move forward, some new rules are created. So it goes on. Among the Jews, you cannot preach on a Sabbath. I mean, you cannot do anything on a Sabbath. In fact, I know people, I know good friends, Jews, who would not even lift their luggage if you go to their house, because they are not supposed to do any effort. Sabbath is the rest day. And Jesus Christ went to the middle of the market and preached on a Saturday, Sabbath. So the priest said, what are you doing? You are breaking the law. So he said, the law was made for man, not man for the law. The human being is more important. This was made for some reason, but it was not made, man was not made for that. The law was made for man. So if I preach and I do some good, I am not breaking any law, because it's for the good of human beings that these things have been made. So you have to look at that. So he says, can you find something which is beyond past and future? Now, if you understand and realize that you are the eternal self, which is tranquil and blissful and does not need anything to fulfill itself, then there is no past, there is no future, there is no right, there is no wrong. When such a person acts, it will be according to the context. But you cannot say that this is the only right thing to do. Like Jesus broke the law. That doesn't mean I must say, oh, I am also a follower of Jesus. I am going to break all laws because I think this is good for humanity. You see what I am trying? Or I say, oh, I am a Hindu, so I will take up my sword and go and fight. But who are you fighting? Think of the context. Who is Arjun fighting? Who are the Pandavas fighting? They are fighting adharma, which Kauravas represent in the story. Right? So, think about all these things, food for thought. Then we go to the next shloka. Then, regarding Om, Yama says in the 16th shloka, Etadhi evaksharam brahma, etadhi evaksharam param, etadhi evaksharam jnatva, yo yad icchati tasya tat. This syllable is verily the everlasting spirit, the symbol of the everlasting spirit. This syllable indeed is the highest end. Knowing this very syllable, whatever anyone desires indeed will be his. Keep chanting Om, you will get all your PhDs. Which means the chanting of Om connects you to your source. So your desire also comes from the same source. Therefore, by chanting Om, the sound, don't think of it as a pure sound that is a bridge between this world and that which is beyond. Consider it this way. And if you chant and if you fix your attention, then you will attain the goal. Unfortunately, if you attain the goal of ordinary things, then you will miss the goal of eternal, that's all. But you will. A yogi will not want to say, I'll chant Om so that I'll get a palatial bungalow. He is missing his palatial bungalow which is already there. Not in the outside world, but which is inside. So, but the sound is very effective. That's why in front of any mantra, you will find Om, most mantras. Why? Therefore, it's called pranava, that which gives life to the mantra. So, एतद् आलम्बनं श्रेष्ठम् एतद् आलम्बनं परम् एतद् आलम्बनं ज्ञात्वा ब्रह्मलोके महीयते. This support is the best of all. This support is the highest. Knowing this support, one becomes great even in the world of the Brahma. Brahma means not Brahman, creator. Now, according to the Hindu system of thought, darsanas, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwar, who are considered deities who create, preserve and destroy, are still lesser gods because the supreme being is the Brahman. So, when you say Brahma Loka, that doesn't mean you have reached the Brahman. You have reached the world where your creative faculties have become so good and so accurate, whatever you want to create, you can create. And look at creation, how it happens, any creation. According to the Vedas, Brahma created the world through his sankalpa. Let's take it as a symbol at the moment. He said, let the world be, and there was this world with all this. Fortunately, we human beings have an amsha or a part of that sankalpa. Animals are very intelligent, believe me. Some of them, when I look at some dogs, I think they are better than us. But they don't have the power of sankalpa, visualization, imagining. If you even want to build a house, what do you do first? You visualize your house, right? There's a sankalpa. Then you call the architect. Then there is a blueprint. And then after some time the house comes up. Sankalpa is essential first. So, the capacity of sankalpa becomes acute, very strong, by when the mind is calm and quiet and tranquil, where you can use the astra called Om then it becomes the creative faculty, new word, modern world, become very sharp and more productive. Whether you want to create something in this world or you want to go back and find your source, that's up to you, but it is there. So, he says that this is the best support of all. This support is the highest. Knowing this support, one becomes great even in the world of Brahma. That means one attains the capacity for creativity. World of Brahman is the world of creation and creativity. Then further it describes that self, because the question Nachiketas asked was, is there an element in me which survives after death, and will it be deathless ever, always? So Yama says in the next shloka, the eternal self, which is your inner self, which is all pervading, which is a part of the Supreme Self, is immortal, it cannot be killed. So he says, न जायते म्रियते व विपश्चिन्नायं कुतश्चिन्न बभूव कश्चित् अजो नित्या शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. In the Gita also similar phrase is used. He says, the knowing self, which is your true self, anyway is never born. You think it is born because you are in this world of sankalpas, in this world of imagination. The inner knowing self is never born. Therefore, there is no question of it dying at any time. It's unborn, therefore it is deathless. It sprang from nothing and nothing sprang from it. It is unborn, eternal, abiding and primeval. When the body is slain, this is not slain, this self. This is exactly what Krishna tells to Arjuna. You are fighting for dharma, now don't look at it from that aspect. You might in the process kill somebody, but that soul will not die, please. Don't worry about that. Nor will yours, so be brave. I'm not saying we should have a war. I'm just giving you an example. I would prefer peace anyway. So, he is not slain when the body is slain, etc., etc. Now, this, he sprang from nothing, that the essence of it is almost nothing. But it is not nothing. It is the source from which everything has happened. But when the mind reaches a point of not harboring any disturbing thoughts, when the mind has become tranquil, it's no longer desiring anything because it is happy with its inner self. Now, that point is called nothing. But it is not nothing. I'll tell you a story. In the Chandogya Upanishad, Uddalaka Aruni's son goes out to study about the truth and comes back. So his father says, so have you understood the truth? So he said, I think I have. So he says, if you think you have, if not, either you have or you have not. Anyway, he says, go there under the banyan tree, you find the seed of the banyan tree, bring it to me. He brings it. Take off the peel. He takes it off. Okay. Now, what do you see? I see the kernel inside. Okay. And remove the kernel. I have removed the kernel, sir. Now what do you see? I see small black dots there, seeds. Okay. He says, take one of those seeds and break it open. Strip it. He breaks it. What do you see? He says, I see nothing, sir. He says, it is from that nothing that this whole banyan tree has come up. It is the essence of the seed. This is the meaning of what they're trying to say. That it sprang from nothing, nothing sprang, it is unborn, eternal, abiding and primeval. So once you understand, O Nachiketas, that you are that, where is your fear of death? Not just theoretically understand, when you have realized that, you are free of the fear of death. Then again it goes into see, when you are trying to describe something which is indescribable, you have to use many metaphors to show what it is like. If something was very describable, you can say, this one is a Rolex watch or something like that, or a Faber Luba or HMT or whatever. But for something which you don't understand, you have to go into metaphors to understand. This is, we are talking about something which is beyond the conditioned mind. Now, the only way to describe it is to go through different descriptions so that you see that it is outside the ken of any description. So, in the 20th, the Upanishad says, Anoraniyan, Mahato Mahiyan, Atmasya Jantor Nihito Guhai Tam Akratu Pashyati Vitashokho Dhatu Prasadan Mahimanam Atmana. Smaller than the smallest it is, greater than the greatest. Now look, this can be, something can't be smaller than the smallest and greater than the greatest. So we are not talking about a material object, which in Sanskrit is called a padhartha. We are talking about something that is beyond, which means it is there in the smallest thing, it's also there in the biggest. This is what it means. So, smaller than the small, greater than the great, the self is set in the secret chamber of every creature, the heart. They have not said Hridaya here. Atmasya Jantor Nihito Guhayam. In that secret place sits the Atman, which means in the core of your consciousness it is. The unstriving man. Now don't mistake this, I am going to explain. That not a lazy fellow. The unstriving man, striving man, beholds this self freed from sorrow. Through tranquility of the mind and the senses, one sees the greatness of the self. When you say the unstriving man, it doesn't mean a man who doesn't do any work, who is sleeping all the time. And that is called Sushupti, it's not Turiya, deep sleep. What they are trying to say, okay, let's explain this. Suppose something is there where you are sitting and I am here and I want to acquire it. So what happens? I have to move from here to there to acquire it. I suppose there is an object here, it's far away from me. I have to reach out to get it. I was hoping you didn't see the glass cup because I was drinking tea. Anyway, so here. But what happens if the thing that you are talking about is here, there and everywhere? Where do you go and get it from? I hope you get what I am trying to say. If something is there and linear, you want to reach it, you have to strive. But what after a lot of striving, you realize that what I am searching for is here. Then where do I go? What do I strive? I stop all movement. And in that movementless moment, I realize that it is here. There is no striving. All striving has stopped. In the beginning, in sadhana, people strive, I have to reach that. Then they realize, what is trying to reach what? I am the essence of it. Where do I go? So stop all grasping, stop all striving. In that tranquility of the heart, as the Upanishad says, it is known. Believe me, don't think that it's a tall order. Who knows? You might sit and think about it suddenly and it might flash. We can't say. Then you won't come for classes from next time. You say, I got it. That's okay with me. So, what I'm trying to say, that don't think it's for a particular elite. It's for everybody. The Upanishads are for humanity. It's not for any particular cult or creed. It's too wide to be caught in such definitions. So, now, to the tranquility of mind and the senses. Now, when the mind is not tranquil, it's always groping and grasping. And when the senses are so turbulent that every second you want to fulfill some sensory, then the mind is not tranquil. Only when the mind is still and completely tranquil, then you realize, what am I searching for? It's right here. Now this is a very funny explanation, funny shloka, because it just contradicts itself. One sentence contradicts the other to prove that what we are talking about is not a material object, but something beyond our definitions. Asino duram vrajati, sayano yati sarvata, kashtam madamadam devam mad anyo jnatum arhati. Sitting, it moves far. He, who? The inner self, about whom Nachiketas come to find out. Your inner self, says Yama, sitting, moves fast. Asino duram vrajati. Shayano yati sarvata. Lying down, he goes everywhere. You've seen there is a particular deity called Padmanabha Swami who Ananta Sayana, always lying down, which is not an encouragement that you should always be lying down and be lazy. It means lying down, it goes everywhere. Who, save myself, is fit to know that God who rejoices and rejoices not. Now Yama is saying to himself, now that I have understood this, who else is there to understand this? That I am enjoying that which rejoices and rejoices not, which means is present even when you rejoice and even when you are not rejoicing. There are no opposites out there. I like this particularly, especially when I feel lazy. I like to chant Sayano Yati Sarvata. He's lying down and yet he moves. Don't do that, I'm joking. Then Ashariram Sharireshu Anavastav Avastitam Mahantam Vibhum Atmanam Matva Dhiro Nashochati. Knowing the self, which is bodiless among all the multitude of bodies, the stable among all that is unstable, the great, the all-pervading, the wise person then does not grieve anymore. Why? He has understood, the wise person has understood that in true essence is none other than that which is bodiless, which is stable even though everything else is unstable, and is all-pervading. Vashyamidam sarvam, pervades everything here. When this is understood, and that is right here like a snap of the fingers, it's here. If only one sees it, then one is freed from sorrow. There is no more grief. Now there is a big shot which is like an atom bomb. This self cannot be attained by instruction, so there is no point, all our semester is wasted. Or is it? We'll have to examine this. This self cannot be attained by instruction. Nayam atma pravachanena labhyo na medhaya, nor by intellectual power, na bahuna shrutena, not by listening, nor through much hearing. Yame vasya vrunute tena labhyas tasya sa atma vivurpnute tanum swam. he is to be attained only by the one whom the self chooses. To such a one, the self reveals its own nature. Now we have all gone. What is the use of all this study now? The self has to choose whom to reveal itself to. So why are we going to? Okay. The next shloka explains why this is said. It's not as if you cannot reach it. The self will choose you, of course. Because whenever you think I am choosing, I am coming into the picture. So I am not allowing the self to manifest itself. I'm doing. When all doing is over, then the self manifests itself. So it's not my thing. You understand what I'm trying to say? I hope so. The moment I say I have attained the self, I have not attained the self. Why? Because I am still there. When I am not there in the picture, there is the self that reveals itself. Now that cannot come through hearing or through intellectual power, because most people who become very intellectual are lost in these intellectual circles, going round and round and round. Much hearing. You can go on hearing but not understand. Some person just sits down and understands in a minute. Now the next shloka says, who is it possible, for what kind of a person is it possible for the self to reveal itself? Who is qualified that the self reveals itself? Even though you might have studied, no use. You might have intellectually and theoretically, yes, but not really. I must tell you, it's very difficult to understand because it is so simple. We look at very complicated. I'll give you stories to illustrate this. Before going to the next shloka, where we will stop for this semester, you must read the Katha Upanishad after that, please, at home or wherever. One is the story of a great Sufi teacher called Bahauddin Naqshband. He was the founder of an ancient order called the Naqshbandis. He is also the person who said that if you find a Sufi order existing after 200 years, you can be sure that there is only the shell, there is no Atma there, there is no inner being. Anyway, so he said he had a disciple who was thought he was close to him and did not lose an opportunity to butter him, so that he thought one day I will succeed him and become the chief. So there were 2,000 people once sitting, and Bahauddin spoke to them. Satsang, they call it halka, satsang. And this man was also there, his secretary was there. At the end of it, after all had gone, he thought now is the right time to butter the teacher. So he said, oh, that was so wonderful, 2,000 people listening to you, not a sound. So wonderful. Then Bahauddin said, but only one person understood. So he got more thrilled. He thought he was going to say, you have the only one who. Then he said, who, master? He said, myself. Only I understood what you know what I mean. So, and the other story is about another madman called Nasruddin. You must have read some comic stories about Mullah Nasruddin. They're in comic books. People think he's a joker, but he was not a joker. He was like an avaduta. So, there was one country here and another country here, and there was a border there. Now, you cannot carry anything across the border, any valuable. You're not allowed, banned. So there's a check post, toll gate, where they stop you. Every evening, Mullah Nasruddin used to appear with 3 donkeys. And each of the donkey will have a big load on it. So the customs fellows will stop them. What are you? You check. So they'll open, and there is nothing but mud and brickbats and cow dung, whatever, camel dung or whatever. So they used to just throw it and say, get out. So it has happened for many days. One day, many years later, Mullah Nasruddin was going for a walk on the seashore. suddenly saw that customs officer who used to be at the toll gate. He had also retired. So that man came to him and said, "Hey, listen, now I'm retired, I can't cause any harm to you. So please can you tell me what the hell were you taking across? Because we checked there were only mud and clay and brick bats. What were you taking?" So he said, "This is the problem. People forget the obvious and look for complicated reasons." He said, "What obvious?" He said, "I was smuggling donkeys, man." You know? So, too much of intellectual going round and round, you end up looking at a young man went for a naval interview. They asked him a very simple question. What kind of animals eat grass? He could not answer this question. They thought, what kind of a fellow, he can't answer such a simple, it's a naval interview. So finally, after a long time, he said, "Sir, goats, cow." Yeah, I said, "What took you so long?" He said, "This was a naval interview. So I thought you were asking me what kind of admirals eat grass. You know, I didn't know it was animals." That's why it took such a long time. So one can be off the track many times if we go too much into, So anyway, now while they said that the self cannot be attained through instruction, so on, intellect and so on, they said it comes to whom it chooses, which means keep yourself out and the self is there. The next shloka kind of explains who the self chooses. Navirato duscharitan na shanto na shamahitaha na shanta manaso vapi prajnanenam apnuyat. Not he who has not desisted from evil ways, not he who is not tranquil, not he who has not got a concentrated mind, not even he whose mind is not composed can reach this self even if he has the right knowledge. So they are saying it is largely psychological rather than collecting and gathering knowledge, which is an intellectual thing. I explained to you before about what knowledge is all about, how knowledge is in the past and not in the present. We went through that. Some other Upanishad, I think. Even if you have right knowledge, if you don't desist from evil ways, because when you cause harm to somebody, you're forgetting that the same self is there. He who is not tranquil, who is always agitated, nor one who doesn't have a concentrated mind, not even he whose mind is not composed can reach this self, even if through right knowledge. Yasya Brahma cha kshatram cha ubhe bhavata odanaha mrityur yasyo pasechanam ka ittaha veda yatra saha. He for whom priesthood and nobility both are as food and death is as a sauce, who really knows where he is? That means that supreme being which you seek in your heart, for whom a great priest meaning a religious head, or the king, the nobility, both are as food. And death is the sauce in which he rubs the food and eats, the supreme being. Who really knows where he is? This is how it ends, this chapter. Which means eternally say, I don't know, then finally you know. The Upanishad says, he who knows not knows, and he knows not.
So today, Jyoti has asked me to kind of lead the question answer session.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
So my question was like if our consciousness is a part of universal consciousness,
Yes.
why did the universal consciousness decide to like divide it like this? And like which kind of tend towards like Why does the physical world exist in the first place?
Okay.
What was it
Listen,
thinking?
listen, it's like this. The moment you realize that the inner self, whatever you say about, then you realize there has neither been a manifestation nor is this going to be a destruction. It's an interim period when you see all these things happen. In the reality, such things do not exist. I'll tell you, here in Vedanta there is an example. Um, you have in the night you're going and you see a rope, okay? You think it's a snake. And the emotions it produces are exactly as if you have seen a snake, right? You scream, you jump. Then somebody shows a torch and you see that it's only a rope. There was no snake anyway. Now, in the essence of the inner self, the world actually is not there. As long as you don't touch that, you see everything happening, ask the question, where did it come from, where is it going, who created, is the essential self created, and so on. These questions cease to occur when you touch it because you know nothing has happened. Some man wrote an autobiography, it's very funny. The title is Nothing Ever Happened. I mean, it's similar to that. Look, all these, you can't give perfect examples for such things, but you can only go as far as you can. So, to your question why, there is no why in this, because why is there only when there is a creation. From the ultimate point of view, nothing has happened. It's like, okay, I dream, okay, I am dreaming. One can ask why are you dreaming? That's a different story. But I am dreaming, and in the dream I see so many worlds, so many things are happening. A woman dreaming may turn into a man sometimes in the dream. Or you might think a tiger is chasing you. You wake up, there is no tiger, there is no, everything is over. It was the mind's content. When the mind is free of this content, through inner contemplation, then all this cease to exist, there is only the reality. And since the reality is here and now, it pervades everything that you think exists, that you think or I think exists. Again, food for thought, think about it.
So also like, okay, let's say nothing else exists and the only reality is
Oh,
universal
wait a
consciousness.
minute, wait a minute, that's only when you know it. As long as you don't know it, you haven't touched it, everything exists, please. Just now
Yeah.
it was raining, so I had to go to the toilet, it exists. But when,
Like my question is,
yeah,
why does, like, is there a purpose for universal consciousness in itself to exist? Is it trying to do
which I do not know. I don't know if the universal consciousness has any reason to exist, but it exists anyway. Is there any reason for gravity to exist? It exists anyway.
might as well be like this? Okay.
So sometimes you cannot find out the source, but that doesn't mean it is not there. You will know the source when you touch it, but then you will find it very difficult to tell it to somebody else. Yeah. Let me give you another Vedantic example. The little baby is sitting with its parents and asking the parents, Mommy, Daddy, do you really love me? Yeah, we love you very much. Then why didn't you invite me to your wedding? It's a legitimate question. No. That's fine, Neha. I am very glad when people think. I am giving you hints. Think about it. Mm.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's not making sense, but I'll think about it.
Think about it. And go through this Upanishad again. Huh? sometime if you get hold of it.
Sir, I have one question. My question was one thing on which we can focus while going through all our activities, because of which we don't miss the correct path. In other words, the question is, what's the precaution we can take to never be misguided?
The precaution is very clear, very simple. The precaution we have to take is that in the search for the ultimate, we are not waylaid by things which are not ultimate. Which means don't allow anything to distract us from this inquiry. That's all that one needs to do. Not allow anything else to do. But because the world is full of distractions, you're thinking, today then something will come and you go, then there is a party, especially young people, then all the search, everything is forgotten. So, the main thing is not to lose track of this one pointed need to know the truth. And if someone doesn't have that, then I don't think we can travel on the path. No.
Sir, there is one thing that I found about sound passing through vacuum.
Oh, you did?
Which I want to take up maybe after two more questions of the students. So, but it depends on your time.
Okay.
So
We
otherwise
have two
we'll take
more
it up
questions.
earlier.
After that, it will
Yeah,
get
two more.
late.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to ask that how has Upanishad progressed over the time, considering that there have been a lot of changes since the time it was written? How are those changes assimilated in for A, Upanishad, and then B, teaching of Upanishads?
Now, the Upanishad is a teaching of the ultimate reality. That ultimate reality has not undergone any changes, even though other things have changed in the world. Okay. Two, the Upanishad is clear that unless one has a clear mind, one cannot explore this. That is also a universal principle. It has not undergone any change. If you want to even do research in quantum physics, for instance, you need to have a clear intelligence in mind. That's all that is required. But here it is also psychological, so you also have to have some parameters for your mind to function. So, actually the Upanishads were nobody knows whether when they were written. The writing came much later. The Upanishads are part of the Vedas which existed by rote. Rishis used to say it and people used to listen. That's why it was called a Shruti. Shruti means that which you listen to. So therefore, I don't think even the external world, even though it has changed in a way which is visible to us, really deep down the external world has also not changed. We all live for satisfying our desires. Olden days they did it in one way, now we do it in another way. We all want information. Olden times it was done in one way, today we are doing it through internet, which is good because without internet today I won't be talking to you. So I am not saying that because Upanishads are ancient, you need not adopt the methodology of the modern world to teach it. This is not what I am saying. You should. You should. But the eternal truths of the Upanishad cannot change because they are equally applicable to all human beings.
That makes sense that when the truth itself has not changed that much.
But the modes may change, mode of finding, mode of expression may change. But I think the Upanishads have in a way so brilliantly tried to present it to us. I am yet to find a modern way of expressing it, really. You don't need to, it's so brilliantly expressed.
Okay. Sir, how has your study of ancient scriptures changed your life?
That's a long story. We won't be able to do. One thing is, it has made me humble. Let me put it this way. First step. It has made me realize that I don't know much more than many people know. And I know that even if I know much more, that has nothing to do with the understanding the truth. Because there are people who could not even sign their names who have touched it. That has happened. The other thing is not only reading the Upanishad, but I would say having understood at least little bit of what is being said, I don't see the human being externally. I see the human being as a carrier or a vehicle of the true essence. Therefore, you are sitting there on the skin, I am sitting here. Seriously, I don't think that you are greater than, I am greater than you, or you are greater than me. I think all these are relative. In essence, you have consciousness and I have consciousness. So I have learnt these two things seriously. That's how I live my life. Where necessary, I might pretend to be superior, but I know that I am not really. So that humility comes through understanding that there is only one self that pervades everything. Nobody is lesser than us. This is my life. This is, if you ask me what is the most important effect, this is what it. Let me also say the third, which is not to dismiss any approach to the truth as wrong. Truth can be approached in many ways. I have learned that also. Yep. Any other question?
Namaskaram, sir.
Namaskar.
Uh, Sir, thank you for the wonderful sessions. I have no other words to say, but just deeply grateful. Thank you so much. Yeah, I had one question, which is so mostly till in usual education or otherwise, we're used to the intellectual mode of understanding, which is probably gathering more information, analyzing, which is making more connections in the brain like that. But when we are saying understanding Om or understanding these things, I feel it's a different way of understanding.
You are right. It's a different mode. It's a different way of understanding. Because the understanding itself comes from this essence which we are seeking. That is the root of understanding. So, see, it's a see, all other knowledge that we try to acquire is what we call pravritti, which means through outside acts, outside activity. Here it is nivritti. You are reversing the action inside, turning around. So definitely it's a different mode, different kind of inquiry. That's the major thing here.
Yes. Sir, since I'm also doing a PhD here in basically at the intersection of yoga and neuroscience, so I was
Good.
thinking, is there something that maybe typically for other learnings I would understand in terms of brain connections or this thing, but this is more like let's say
I,
uncovering, like
I have a suggestion. If someone is deeply meditating, someone is seriously meditating, not faking, and is going, and you think is going into the deeper layers of his mind, try and make scans. Now you have all those things that appear with colors and what activity is happening in which part of the brain. Try that and see what's happening. I don't know. Try it. You might see that something is also happening in the brain while this is going on, in the physical level, in the cells, in the synapses, in the neurons. Just see what is happening. And please don't confine yourself only to the cerebrum and the cerebellum. Go down the spine. You see, after all, you know that the spinal cord is only a continuation of brain matter, so it's very thin. So some activities are going on there also. And please do not neglect the old primitive reptilian brain, which is starting from the cerebellum down. This is the new, this is the cerebrum. I call this present civilization the frontal lobe civilization. Look at other lobes also. This way, you may not find the ultimate truth, but you can find some way to interest neurologists to look into this matter. Since you said you are doing neurology, so I am saying this to you. I have some very good friends who are noted neurologists with whom I have regular discussions on that. We need to set something up. When you are young, I think the right thing to do. It will be a great thing. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So I was looking at the net, sir, and there is a publication in the New Scientist on the 2nd of October 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a news item, but more like referring to the original paper.
Okay.
This talks about, the title is "Sound Can Leap Across Vacuum."
Really?
So, and
Leap across or how?
these no, but this, of course, I'm not a physicist, so I have a disclaimer here. I won't understand the full thing, but I think this gap is very small. So it's a very, very small gap across what's happening, but it's along the lines of what you were saying.
Right.
So I'll just read out one little bit from here. So this is the part that talks about the sound. So when a sound wave reaches, so this is actually these. So let me just read from this part.
I'm listening.
So it says, now a theoretical analysis by Mika Prunila and Johanna Meltius, both at the VTT Technical Center in Finland, suggests that sound may be able to leap across a vacuum separating two objects made of piezoelectric crystals. These crystals generate an electric field which, when squeezed or stretched by sound waves or other forces, and deform into an electric field. When a sound wave reaches the edge of an electric crystal, the electric field associated with it can stretch across the gap and deform the crystal on the other side, creating a sound wave in that crystal. And they give it a reference. It is as if the sound waves don't even recognize the vacuum; they just go through it. Says Prunila. So this is the news item for that particular paper that is mentioned here. This is given.
Right. So this is a new discovery, because as of now in school and college we have been taught that sound does not travel through a vacuum.
Yeah, but this is a very small gap. So they talk about solid vacuum solid transmission across crystals.
Whatever, still something on.
Something is there. It's not.
This is how things are discovered.
Yeah, so I'm just posting the reference number here for the students.
Okay.
So that in the chat, so they can see this.
They can look at it. Yeah.
And
I would suggest to these scientists that instead of any sound, they should send Om and see what happens. We don't know.
I don't know. So, but this is at least one point is there that. So I looked at the other paper that is really very heavy with physics, and I don't have the.
Please don't send me heavy papers, Professor.
Okay.
Very light.
Okay.
Thank you. So thank you all for this wonderful time we had together, and I hope instructive time, something food for thought, and we'll see when I come to Delhi sometime, now that the COVID is slowly on the move. We might meet each other. Let's hope so. Huh? And then you can collar me and ask me questions. Now you can't do anything. I'm far away, right?
Looking
Okay.
forward to it.
Thank you. See you. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir.
Namaskar, sir. Sir, many congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
He left already.